Do I have audio? Yep. I'm sharing the screen. Okay, my apologies, guys. That's me finally figured out how to work this, I think. Let's see if I can get through this without any more tech glitches or me just, quite frankly, not knowing what on earth I'm doing when it comes to technology. So, I'll start again since I wasn't actually sharing the screen. I've actually got my current gallery sitting open at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through defenders, midfielders, and forwards. So the advice that I'm going on at the moment, this is all based on research through Sorare data and obviously Sorare itself. Um, I've basically been looking at things like how many games they've played in the last 15, because that will show you current wise where they're at. I've also looked at the average score for the last 5 and the last 15. The lowest price at the moment, based on the rates in the game, the 1 month average, which we'll see from Sorare data, and the value in pounds that I've attached to each of them. Um, from the speaking with the guys on the podcast last night with Hybe and You'll Never Walk Alone, we we were chatting about how onboarding can be, people see it as really expensive. It's, you can't join in and be competitive. What I'm going to try and display today is that that is possible, especially if you're just trying to onboard and don't want to spend an awful lot of money. So what I've gone through this morning is I've gone through defenders, midfielders, and forwards. As I said, this is kind of based on the fact that you have a common goalkeeper that you would have got through your onboarding, or a you've actually bought a goalkeeper. Now, if you have bought one, chances are it's a backup goalkeeper that's not playing, but it would at least allow you to play. Uh, Ideally, onboarding, if you've not onboarded, select a team as your favourites, your 3 favourite teams, pick them, one from America, one from Europe, and one from Japan. That way, you should hopefully over the time pick up players from each of those nations that you could actually use in the game going forward. So first and foremost with defenders, the first guy I'm going to bring up is Riki Matsuda. Now the players that I've been looking at, as I say, I want them to have played as many games as possible. So this guy here has played 100% of the last 15 games. He's also sitting with an average score for the last 5 games of 36, which isn't great. But when you're working on a budget, you have to, baby steps and work your way up the averages. For the last 15, he's sitting on 43, which isn't a disaster. And it would help you get towards either the 205 or the 250. The lowest price for him on the market at the moment is 0.017. You can see that the average for the month was 0.026. Now, that'll have been affected, obviously, with Ethereum going up. The prices in Ethereum have come down slightly in the game because people tend to look at their own currency as the basis for what they value things at. So I'll bring him up in Sorare itself so you can actually see on the transfer market what things are looking like just now. Not my balance. There we go. Cerezo Osaka. So before I go into that, you'll actually see the more of the details on him down at the bottom here. 14 appearances, has played every minute of all 14 games. He hasn't been subbed at any point. So that would be good for gaining some extra points. Unfortunately, he's had a bad run of scores, which will obviously be reflected in his price. However, his average um, in the long run has been much better. So you'll see there we go, there's one, it's a 2020 card for 0.017, a 2021 card for 0.19. Now, as I say, the way that I've been attaching the pound value to them is looking back at the last few days worth of sales. So you can see here one went yesterday or late last night for 34 quid. A few days ago for 47, 43, 49, 45, 40. So that can kind of give you a rough idea that this guy's probably worth in the region of £45. So if you were looking to pick him up, that'd be the sort of price you'd be looking to get him in at. Now there are others, and I have more listed. I've got this isn't my first choice that I would be looking to go for, but if I'm trying to work under a a point one, this would be a starting point to get a guy that's actually playing is actually going to score you some points. The next player that I'm going to bring up is Ryo Ogawa, and he is from FC Tokyo. Now he is again he's played 100% of the last 5. He's missed one game in the last 14, which isn't a disaster. Averaging 42 and 37. The lowest one on the market, this was actually jumped up quite a bit from earlier. There was actually one available for 0.016. So as you can see from the 3-day average from the auctions, is sitting about 1.8. So again, affordable. In game wise, you're probably looking at about a £50 value to attach to this lad here. So if I bring that up, again, my apologies. I'm really trying to work with technology, and technology and me don't seem to agree these days too much. I mean, that 12 is a bit of a disaster, but it beats a DNP. And as I say, on the market, it says 16. Sorry, it said 16 earlier, but that's maybe finished. You can see there's been ones here at 17 that have gone in auctions, 20. So again, probably basing him around the sort of £50 mark. There have been ones higher, but his price has come down because he's just scored 12. So that will influence that. Again, though, if you're looking for the longer term, over the 15 games, he has scored 42. So it's not a disaster there to have him sitting in and about your team. However, the first choice one that I would be looking at if I was coming in on a new start to the game would be Yoshinoro Suzuki from Shimizu S Pulse. He has played every minute of his team's games. Again, he's not been subbed in, he's not been subbed out. And you'll see that his averages are significantly better than the other lads here. He did have a 65 against Vissel Kobe. Price wise, he is coming in. The lowest when I did this was 21, which is sold a few hours ago, but there is 23. Now, this looks like this lad's only available in the 2021 card, which is great because it'll get you the additional boosters for him. Which, again, when you are trying to squeeze every last point out of a player, that is not a bad situation to be in. We'll just have a quick look here if I can. Yoshiniro. So there is scope for this price to go back up as well. If you look at the price graph at the beginning or the middle of April, he was significantly higher than where he is now. He's kind of settled into the 0.02 range. Looking at his scores, apart from one low score there, he's pretty consistent. 3 high green scores, and attaching a value to him of about £60 based on his last few sales. That's not the end of the world for a guy that's played every game and every minute of every game. So that would be, if I was going to be looking at one, that would probably be one that I would look to pick up, just on the basis of his game time and the fact he's scored an average of 44 for the 15 games and 46 for the last 5. So it's definitely one that I would look to pick up. So moving on to the midfielders, I have 7 midfielders listed here now. To be perfectly honest, it's a mix mash, so I'm probably going to show the main ones that I would aim towards, and then I'll post the others onto Twitter directly. So the first one I'm going to look at, this lad is more of a substitute. However, he has actually played in all of the last 5 games and has an average of 50 and has played in 80% of the rest of the games. So he's played 12 out of 15 and has an average of 47. He does play for one of the best sides in the league. Um, and that is reflected a wee bit in his price. So he is a little bit more expensive on the market at the moment. The prices on a Friday do tend to seem to be a little bit higher with people buying in before the deadlines. But with the 3-day average from the market, 0.024, again, it's quite affordable. And if you see his scoring, when he does play, he tends to get some decent scores coming in. I think he scored last weekend, and that's where that scoreline came from. Came off the bench, I believe, early on for an injured player, which might mean that he would actually get a start this week coming. So again, with him, I would attach a value of roughly in the kind of £55 range. And that would be one that would maybe be worth keeping an eye on moving forward. Now, the next one, I should really check these prices as we go because obviously the market is fluid, it changes constantly, so it is not necessarily exactly the same as either when I've written it down or when I'm showing. But yeah, no. Yoshiki Matsushita, the lowest price 0.024, and the 1 month average is 0.034. So again, that's probably just the price fluctuation between people's real currency and the crypto. I've put the value based on his scores in his prices in Sorare, roughly about £68. And that would get you a guy that's played 14 of the last 15 games. It is one of the teams at the bottom end of the table. However, from my own experience with Yamato Machida, being at the bottom end of the table doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have bad scores, especially in midfield. So for the last 5, he's averaged 48. Last 15, he's averaged 45. Those would both get you towards your 205 threshold to get some prize money coming in. You will see that he has a 2020 card and a 2021 card. Personally, working on a budget, I'm not too fussed whether it's a 2020 or a 2021 card. The 5% is significant if you're really trying to squeeze every last point out of your team. However, you'll see a lot of these lads have still got, there's 2.5 of a boost, 2.5, 2.5. So people are actually using these cards and rebuilding the percentages. So that's something to bear in mind, but I wouldn't, it's not life or death as far as I'm concerned on those ones. Apart from this one, the rest of them are around the 62, 70, 69. So I've attached a £68 value onto him. And I think that's a fair place to start in that one. Now, the next one I'm going to skip to is one that I was about to buy yesterday. However, I changed tack and went with a different player that was a little more expensive. Naoki Yamada from Shonan Bellmare. He has played 100% of his last 15 games, averaging 53 for those games, and 45 for his last 5. The lowest on the market at the moment, 0.03. Now, this would be somebody that you could potentially bring in and build a little bit around, but you can also see that his 1 month average here is sitting at 0.074. Now, that's based on the fact that a couple of weeks ago, he had some high green scores, particularly the 91 here. Again, 78, 68. So this has a massive impact on the player values, especially when they're low value. So if you're buying a player at 253 or 30, when they have a couple of good games, as I've seen with Machida, his value went from 0.035 all the way up to he's sitting about 6570 just now. So you can see a massive influence with them having a good game. So this one would be one that I was wanting to buy to see if he has another run of form, watch his price go back up and sell at the right time. Because when you're working on a budget, you are going to want to turn over your players. And that reinvest, find the next, diamond in the rough to bring him up. So he is one that, if I was going to look at the midfielders, he would definitely be the one that I'd be looking to pick up, especially at that sort of a price. Bring him up on Sorare itself. Um, Again, apologies. This isn't the most professional of presentations. I'm doing my best, but I'll get better as things go. Now, there you can see he's played 13 games. He has been substituted out. In the J League, they've got 5 substitutes at the moment, so you do tend to find a lot of players getting subbed out with alarming regularity. um, but he has scored a couple of goals, got an assist. So definitely one that, 30 is not like a spring chicken, but he would certainly do a job for at least the next few weeks whilst you were looking to build your team and to build up your balance to be able to buy bigger and better players. 0.032, 2020 card. There are the auctions you could see there. 2.8 went a couple of days ago. It would help if I don't just scroll the wrong way. But he did have some higher prices in the near past as well, especially when he would have had the higher average with those, with the 92 still being attached to him. 91 still being attached to him. Obviously, that's dropped off his 5-game average now, so his prices have come down a little bit as well. So, might not be a bad time to look to buy into a guy like that. The next one that I would look at, I've got 2 that are much cheaper. In fact, I'll go with the middle one first of all. I'm actually going through them all pretty much anyway. So let's go with Yusuke Kaiwe. Another player from Shimizu S Pulse. So again, you could see the teams that are at the bottom end of the table are still scoring decent scores and are obviously very cheap at the same time because people don't necessarily gravitate to the players at the bottom of the table. But this guy's coming in sitting at 0.022, which is what I've got on my sheet from earlier, which is remarkable. 1 month average 2.5, so you could probably see he's sitting pretty steady. He's not going up, he's not going down. This would be a guy that you would probably look to buy to play 100% of the last 15 games, a 44 average for the 15 games, and a 45 average for the last 5. And that would be pretty steady. And if you can rely on a player to be coming in with the an average of 45, that means it takes the edge off somebody having a bad game. But if somebody does have an exceptional game and scores, a high, scores a goal, scores assists a goal, and gets a score of 70 plus, having somebody else scoring 45, you're halfway or over halfway to the threshold, and getting yourself some money. So yeah, with him, I've attached a value of about £50 to him. If we look him up in Sorare itself, let's see, Kaiwa, 13 games, has been subbed out 9 times. As I say, you'll see that left and right, but he has played every single game. And card value on the market, let's just find the cheap one. There we go, just listed about an hour ago, 0.022. That's not bad for a guy that's going to start for you. Now, obviously, things happen. In fact, there's a cheaper one, 2-1. Things happen, COVID, injuries, all sorts of things. But you could look at the data, you could see it there. He is somebody that is regularly on the team sheet and scoring half decent scores. Yeah, as I say, I've attached a £50 value to him. So, there 12 hours ago, 4 hours ago, it's pretty consistent in and about the £50 price level. 53, 51, 51, 48. So he's pretty consistent in about the 50 quid mark. If I was going to be looking to bid, I would probably try and make offers less than that. I'd probably be looking at maybe the 18, 19 because that's what he's going for in the auctions. And if you can whatever you can squeeze out of it, the better for you. The next one, these are a couple of lower budget ones. We will go with Kayamatsu. First of all, Kayamatsu. Probably better if I did this on some sort of PowerPoint presentation. I could just do slides. That'd probably be easier, but never mind. So yeah, this guy's sitting on the market at 0.019. 1 month ago he was 0.032, so that's a wee bit of an indicator. You can see his form's not been as great in the last 5 games, but he has been averaging 49 over the last 15. He's played 14 in the last 15 games, and he's played all of the last 5. If I have a look down here at his price range, you can see obviously there's an anomaly there. That's probably looks like somebody transferring players out or money out or something like that, perhaps. But you can see he's pretty consistent in around the 20 or the 0.02 range. Score wise, again, quite consistent, but you can see here where his prices did go up because he had these 3 higher green scores accompanied with a few green scores. So, yeah, he's had a decent start to the season. Like I say, maybe not the greatest run recently with this one, but that looks like he was actually a substitute in that game. So, for that sort of a price, you're probably attaching a value of about 50 quid to him, based on his recent sales. But that is somebody that if when he hits a bit of form again, he is only 26, you could see his price rise again, and you could look to sell at a profit and reinvest again. Lastly, for the midfielders anyway, Keigo Higashi from Tokyo. Now, he hasn't played as many games. He's played 13 in the last 15, averaging 44. Now, he's having a bit of a tough time of it. He's only scored 36 in the last 5 games, which is reflected in his price. He has come down quite significantly. He's half of what he was a month ago. So again, that's somebody that if he could hit a little bit of form and find some green scores again, then he could well find his value going back up. And you could maybe even sell him, if you're buying him at 14 and you sell him at 18 or 20, then you're making profit. Now, with his price being so low, I've attached a value of about £40. I really wouldn't pay much more than that for a lad like, with his score as low as it is at the moment. So that would probably be one that, if you needed to squeeze one extra player in, because you've spent more on the other players, this wouldn't be. It's not a disaster of a shout. Let's see if we can find. There we go. 14. It's 2 14s, and they're both the 2020 cards. You could probably get them for 11 or 12, and be well under the £40. So that would be the midfielders that I would probably look at to be able to get you towards the points threshold. When it comes to the forwards, this is where it becomes a bit more expensive. There's fewer of them, not as few as there is goalkeepers, but there's certainly fewer forwards. The 2 that I'm going to focus on just now, though, they are. I'll show you the first one we'll go with is Sugimoto. From Urawa Reds. He looks like he's primarily a substitute. However, he has played in every game in the last 15. He's averaged 38 for the last 15 and 30 for the last 5. So he has probably been more on the bench recently. Having looked at live score, you can see 6 sub in. So he has been on the bench recently. But he has played every game. So you will get it beats getting that 0, and it could be the difference between getting a threshold and not. Price wise, the lowest earlier was 0.021, and it's actually Pavel Trader that's got him. So I do tend to find trade wise that could be difficult with Pavel Trader, but if you're offering him Ethereum, he is a bit more flexible, I've noticed, and it maybe just depends on what day of the week you catch him. So you might get away with him being in at 18, maybe 17. Just see what happens. If you have got some players that you're stuck with that aren't scoring or are poorer, then might be worth putting them in with some Ethereum and cashing out and getting into somebody that is getting a game every week. And lastly, and probably the one that I would look for more so, is Kensuke Nagai, also of Tokyo. He has played 100. No, sorry, I tell a lie. He's played 14 of the last 15 games. But he has been an ever present this season. He's played 13 games this season. He has primarily been a substitute. He's come on 9 times, but he has had some starts there too. Um, a good scoreline against Kawasaki there. And looking at his cards, the lowest earlier was 0.025. There we go. There's still one there. And in the auctions, you may be able to pick up a new one a little bit cheaper. There's one finishing later on. That's already in that kind of price bracket. I've put a value of about £80 on him. If you could get him in and around that range, you will see in Sorare data that he has. Here we go. He was almost double that, and that would probably be in and around the time that he had that game against Kawasaki and had the high scores. So there's 2 higher scores in a row. Again, if he hits a couple of games like that, which you can see from his record, he is more than capable of having a couple of games where he's scoring goals or assists, then his value goes back up. So that's one of the main reasons I put him in as the main one that I would look at possibly getting into, especially at that price range. So I wrote down the 4 that I would probably look at picking up, and based on their current prices, and that was Yoshinoro Suzuki, and he was sitting at 0.021. Yusuke Kawai that we looked at, 0.022. Naoki Yamada, that I think he would be the first choice that I would look to go out my way to get if I was just building the team again. 0.03, I think you'd probably be able to negotiate that, get that a bit lower. And then Kensuke Nagai here at 0.025. Paying the market prices for those 4 players would be coming in around the 0.098. So you're actually under the 0.1 to bring in 4 players that are 100% or close to for the last 15 games, not likely to score you zeros. And between those 4, if you look at their averages, it does push it up towards, say, the 160, 180 range. If you've got that common goalkeeper and they could pull in those extra 20 points after the penalties for you, it pushes you towards the 205 as a minimum. If one of those guys has a great game, it could push you up to the 250. I've been lucky the last 3 weeks with Yamato Machida, sorry. Having 3 great games, scoring over 70 in all 3 games, which really helped push me towards the 250 that I've achieved in 2 of the 3 weeks. And one of the weeks was 205 when I sold Muto right on the deadline and had to play a DNP up front. But I justified that by making a 0.03 profit on him. So you kind of win anyway. But that's just a little summary. I've probably talked far too fast. I will post a little bit of this onto Twitter. I am going to work on trying to make it into a YouTube video as opposed to on here, so that we can maybe get a little bit more feedback and get a bit more of an idea of what people are looking for. Hopefully this is a starting point and it gives somebody a chance. If it helps anyone, great. If nobody uses it, just as great. I enjoy the research. I enjoy looking at the players, seeing who could potentially increase in value, who could potentially be somebody that is worth picking up. You will actually see from my club at the moment, I actually picked up a player when I was looking through, and I actually think it might have been the one that I couldn't find at the low price there. I believe it was. It was indeed. I picked this lad up for myself. I managed to get him for 0.012. And he's capable of being a higher value player. So he's not going to play in my team. He's going to be getting sold. This is the midfielder I picked up. And this was a wee cheeky reward last night. So I wish you all well in your weekend leagues, and hope everybody hits the thresholds. If I can help anyone with little bits of advice, I'm by no means an expert. I'm by no means, if you ask me about players at the higher end, I'm not going to know everybody, but I'll do my best to do a little bit of digging and see what I can find out. And yeah, obviously catch me on Twitter at Sorare on a budget. You can see here my username in here is Gibbuk. So if you want to have a look at my gallery at any point, feel free. If you want to make offers on the players or ask for a trade, you can catch me on Twitter or you can message me on Discord. But that'll be me for now. Thanks very much for your time.